Well, here goes nothing. I'm ready to get going on installing the sunroof. It's all been painted previously, obviously, and now it's going to be, well, it's all been wiped out with cleaner and stuff, and it's got the drain plugs, the drain tubes. I've resealed the ends of them, and then the rear ones I've got, I'm about to reinstall these. I've put new ends on them. So fronts don't have the ends, the tubes just stick out, and then these things go through there. So yeah, we're ready to roll now, and look forward to getting the sunroof in. And then I guess after that would be the, I'm also going to test fit the seats and then put the headliner in. So fun times. Well, I got stuck. This is the old one, and this is the drain tube at the rear, the gasket that goes to the hatch opening, and then this is the new one. And these are 175877243. That's the number. But I don't know if you can see, the new ones have got a much larger diameter hole that they would have to fit through. The old ones have got a significant gap. You can see cut in there. So it's basically in Imperial, it's a 1/2 inch hole that has to pass through the sheet metal. And a fucking thing, there's no way. This thing is like solid rubber, and it's not compressible, and it's way more than a 1/2 inch diameter. So something's fucked, and yanking, and I tore it. Took a chunk out of it. So rather than, and you know, these things, yeah, they're available, but you know, they're not the right size. So the hole diameter is a 1/2 inch leaving the car. The tubing looks like it's 11 millimeter OD. But it has to expand to fit over the metal drain where the sunroof is, the rear drains. So by my figuring, I can take 1/2 inch OD tubing, thin wall tubing, and caulk it carefully, lightly, as it passes through the metalwork to the hatch area, so it doesn't, rainwater doesn't get in, and then heat it and stretch it a bit and slide it over the what looks like about 7/16 or 3/8 inch diameter, the metal tube, drain tube at the back of the sunroof. So anyway, I'm just going to order some tubing and jury rig this thing, because I don't think there's any other solution here. So bummer, but I can put the sunroof in and do this in parallel. I don't have to hold the sunroof up. Oh, I did get my, this is right here with my foot, this is the wind deflector. So that came from VW Classic Parts through, or via VW Heritage in the UK. So that's from Germany, it's an OEM original part. So I got everything I need now to assemble the sunroof. Got my new cables and grommets and gaskets and screws and nuts. So the only thing I'm fabricating are the steel springs that help push the sunroof down. And I got some sheet metal material, some spring material, so I'm going to cut those to shape and install those, and it should work. Hopefully there's not, well, if there's too much tension, then I'll just make them thinner so they, you know, will not over stress the metal pins. I'll show it to you, you know, once I get that organized. Well, I ended up ordering food grade silicone tubing, the white silicone tubing, 1/2 inch OD, 3/8 ID, and the metal tube that comes out, the drain tube that comes out to the back of the sunroof, that's 12 millimeters or 1/2 inch in diameter. So I have to stretch, so 3/8 is a little under 10 millimeters, so I have to stretch it. Maybe if I can heat it with a heat gun and stretch it over, or carefully drill it out a little bit so that the wall is thinner so that I can stretch it. But I I've ordered some tubing and we'll see if I can make it work. Okay. So I got the seat mechanisms back in place and put them in the car and tested them, and they worked. And then tragedy struck. So I on the passenger side, I've always had really good mechanicals. Like this winder mechanism is flawless. The seat is straight. It's always really awesome. Passenger seat, no problem. The driver's seat, I'd had to re-weld it. In fact, the welds had broken, like some heavy guy had sat on it, and I'd repaired all that stuff. But here's my problem. I have broken the internal winder mechanism, and I've just sliced the shit out of my finger too. Basically, this wasn't winding. I've got the lever off because it was too hard to turn, and the seat's not absolutely perfectly square at the bottom. These mechanisms bend in. I remember someone heavy had sat there, and I didn't really notice that they weren't parallel before I upholstered the seats or got the seats upholstered. But the mechanism's broken now. When I turn the winder on the one side, it doesn't turn on the other side, and not good. So I'm going to carefully take the upholstery off the bottom of the seat and have a look at the mechanism. I mean, anything can be repaired, I guess. Worst case is a new frame from the junkyard. Huh. Wow, what a drag. I'm gonna kill the upholstery guy. He wrecked the seat. So, he was using screws in a bunch of places and rivets where they weren't originally, to make his life a little easier. And he drilled a hole, a couple holes, straight through the tube, straight through the shaft in the middle, and put the screw in. For some reason the other seat is actually working. These screws are hidden until I pulled the upholstery off, and now fuck off. Anyway, yeah, so now I've busted the shaft trying to turn it because there's a fucking screw all the way through it. Oh boy. Yes, so I will be taking apart the side pieces, and I will be and they're in like industrial riveted, and I'll grind them off, I guess, and disassemble the shaft assembly and see if I can bring this back to life and put the seat back together without being a moron like the upholstery guy. Fuck. So the shaft inside is a square shaft, and this tube is normally welded in or press fit and spot welded in to this outside frame. So this is broken here, and then the inside tube itself has been snapped. So what I'm going to do is drill out these two large metal rivets here, and hopefully that's going to allow me to pull the shaft out this side. So we'll see what we have to see. This side's, this side here is square and it's functioning correctly. I may have to put in a completely new shaft, which I hope I won't have to do. So I'm going to start by taking this side here apart first. And anyway, this is all crooked, so I'm going to have to see what I can do about rebuilding this. Alright, so I've torn it all apart. Basically, the tube at the bottom is press fit in. I mean, it works, I guess, for the majority of people the majority of the time, but the whole, if you just look at the design of the seat, basically the springs are pulling these sides together, you know, and the only thing that's opposing all this pressure, so you lean on the seat again, it's even more pressure to pull the bolsters towards the center. And the only thing that's the very top is the metal brace across the top, which was weak, and I had actually re-welded that and put a bunch of bracing in there because it was cracked and the spot welds were broken. And on the bottom it's this press fit tube that holds it together. So I'm going to, I think, rather than welding, because it's got heat involved and it's going to make it a little tricky for me, I'll have to heat cool it to keep it from, I don't want to strip the whole frame down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, I'll just clean it all up. I'm going to put some high strength epoxy in and jam the tubes back in, but I'm also going to build a brace. Might even make it out of something like oak rather than square tube steel, although I could probably do it in steel instead. We'll see, but basically put a wide, 2-inch wide flat piece across up above the tube that you know, provides way more torsional stiffness to the frame. Get these things absolutely parallel to each other. What I've done here is I've drilled out the two large, you can see over here, these the remains of the rivets. They're big, heavy metal rivets, and I drilled them out. And inside this unit here is a got a what do you call that? A cam that when this this is the broken piece here. So and it's got the square ends that fit in to the ends of each of these caps, and basically as you turn this concentric set of gears, there's one set of gears inside the other. You can see the gears inside there, and then they wobble up and down. So as I turn this, for instance, you will notice, actually it's easier to see from the other side, sorry, you'll notice that it wobbles. So it doesn't just smoothly rotate, it goes as these inside gears that you can see here, as these gears sort of wobble as it turns. So I'll machine, as I said, a new piece of steel that connects side A to side B, and I can slide it through from one side and then put the caps on and then bolt them back together. And then the seat, I can put the seat back together as well. And it'll be better than it was before. As I said, it was a bit bent, wasn't quite straight before, and this press foot had started to give way. You can actually see it was rusty in there, so it was failing. So it's probably best that I tear it apart as I did and get back in the swing of things. So a little diversion here, no question, but it was probably worthwhile. So there's the ugly, degraded fabric from the headliner of the sunroof. So pulled it all off, and actually I'm cleaning it all up and ready to paint the frame and then reupholstering it. So yeah, it just took a lot of cleaning, you know, using paint lacquer thinner, get all the glue off of it and give it a sanding. Just what a messy job, but got it done. Paint it now, and then I can upholster it tomorrow. So I got this surgical grade silicone rubber, 1/2 inch OD, 3/8 inch ID, and it's going to be perfect actually. It barely fits through the opening of the for the air, sunroof drain tube, and this stuff stretches, so I'll be able to stretch it over the metal and cut it to whatever length I need. So I'll do the rears because the fronts are a smaller diameter and I don't need to change them. So there we go. Yeah, so here's the madness. I used 1/2-inch solid aluminum rod to build 2 parallel supports in behind the main tube. So cleaned it all up, and then used high strength epoxy to put the tube back in place. And then for the tube, for the rod that's in tension, I used machine screws and epoxy, and then for the one that's in compression I just used epoxy at the bottom. And I'm going to let this sit for 24 hours, get good and strong, and then I'll remove the clamp. But it's parallel now, and exactly the right width. I've got one really good seat so I can compare it. And then where I had to knock this thing off, I'm using my body filling techniques to make it look pretty, because I had to bang and crash and drill and hammer to get it off. And then I've got machined here 5/16 solid brass rod that I've squared off, 5mm square ends, and that obviously goes inside the tube. And as you can see from here, it's the eccentric cam there. So yeah, we're getting good, and I'm going to work on the sunroof for a little bit. But before I do that, I'll just show you. I did use the 1/2-inch, 16th-inch wall, so it's 3/8 internal and 1/2-inch external silicon food grade, or food grade, medical grade tubing, connecting into the drain at the back. So that actually worked well. It stretches very easily. And as I said I was going to do, I used a little bit of clear sealant around it on both sides, and that should do the trick. I'm pretty happy about how that worked out too. Well, we're sort of in a super wide angle mode here, but there they are, done. So yeah, I had to index the seat, the mechanism that, my new brass bar that runs through the seat. Basically the only way to index it accurately was to actually leave the hinge partially disassembled, get it absolutely locked into the seat frame so that it's resting exactly on the pins in the back, and then slide the index, and then slide in the cam, and then yeah, then she works. So, and everything moves forward and locks back nicely, and the mechanisms all do their thing. So you turn it and the seat moves. Yeah, baby. I'm super happy with my mechanisms. Everything's straight and true now. So seats are complete, and I can get the sunroof and the headliner in. I've done the new headliner for the sunroof piece, but the rest of the headliner obviously is next. So I'm getting excited about slamming this in the car tomorrow. Yep, I'm doing the sunroof. So just a couple things. First thing I was trying to do is get this seal on the edge, and you can see the end of it. It's got a metal. It's focusing there or not. I don't think it is. But there's a metal brace embedded in this, and the trick is to get a screwdriver, little flathead screwdriver, and just work along inside, wiggling it, opening it up a little bit. Otherwise, good luck getting it on. This is from Mark 1 Auto House, but I think they're all probably the same supplier. Yeah, the other thing is, that's your solution. The original Volkswagen sunroof that's at thesamba.com on the archives and manuals. Just look for manual_watercooled vw.pdf, and it's better than the standard shop manual by far. The standard shop manual is garbage, and the only thing, as I said, as well as my top piece where the you know, the handle or the gear is in the middle of that piece. Mine's an integral unit that's all been spot welded together rather than separate pieces, and none of these manuals actually talk about that, so I'll figure that out. And yes, the gear mechanism itself, when you turn it, it only goes so many turns one direction and only so many the other, so you have to make sure you index it correctly. So we'll see how I do here as I progress. Yeah, so putting the seal on, never get it on if I hadn't stretched it with the flathead screwdriver. And even though I've stretched it moderately, it takes a lot of force to get it all the way in. But it's working out. Just a little bit slow to do. Well, so far so good. So I loosely put, well, first of all I slid the cables in, and then left the front of the cable dangling from each of the guide rails. So I put the guide rails in without bolting them in, and left the cables loose at the front with this front piece off. Then I popped the headliner piece in to the gaps. Still, the whole thing's loose, so I can lift it up and down. And then I just threaded the cable into this section here. So it's all, the plastic pins are in the back, holding it in place. I'm ready to bolt this in, and as soon as I bolted this in, then I can put the next several pieces together. So we're getting progress here. So I slid the rear cable guides up to the angled stops, and then you're supposed to drop the sunroof on. So as you see, I've taped this to protect the paint, and I've got some foam here to rest the front of the sunroof. So you look underneath, can't really see much, but basically I zoom in. It's a little dark, but that's the rears are attached. Just keep in mind you're going into sheet metal, so there's no need to tighten the crap out of it. You'll just strip everything, and you'll see some pliers there that are holding the base of the bosses that some of the sheet metal screws go into, because they get old and you put a little torque on them and they spin free. So gotta grab them from underneath and hold them in place to basically act as the nut on the other side. And I'm about to install the front guides now. Pull out the foam, slide it back, put the front guides in. Yeah, so the manual tells you, have the rear cables and guides all the way forward, and then you drop this thing in and attach the fronts. Well, no way. You have to actually, once you get those things installed and you make sure that the cable guide, the little levers are flipped up, you pop the gear mechanism in, and you wind your back as far as I've got approximately, and then you can get the fronts in. It drops in and drops down. So yeah, now I'm going to adjust it and see if I can get it to open and close nicely. But starting to feel good about this. So I actually found that the best way to do the front height adjustment, there's the internal screw and then there's the two external screws that balance it. And anyway, I find that you just take the whole assembly out, basically, get the roof level, put the assembly in, and fiddle with the screws until you're very, very close to having it tight without moving this, and then you can do the other technique. But to get it close at first, just have that whole thing super loose, and then just push the sunroof up and down with your hand until you get it to the level you like, and then start tightening it up, and that's better. The other thing that they don't talk to you about in this is re-indexing the wheel. The gear assembly actually only goes 12 turns lock to lock. So once you've got this thing set up, then when you're in the forward position that you like, the rear is lifted up just the right amount, Then you take that unit out, re-index it so that it's fully forward, pop it back in so that you can't overwind it and push the roof any further than the max position. So ingenious little engineering thing in that winder mechanism, having the ability to wind it 12 times before it stops. So anyway, I'm not quite done yet, but I'm figuring it out and it's looking better and better. Okay, I'll try to do this. Reach in and turn. And there she goes. Sorry, Mr. Wobbles. But it works. Yeah. So they talk a little bit about how they index the crank or the gear by taking it back a couple turns and taking it out and stuff. Yeah, I guess fiddling it, that might work, but the way I've done it is get it all the way where you want, get the rear height just exactly where you want it, take it out, index it, drop it back in, and that seems to work. It lifts the roof up and down at the back, so it's a little bit of a compromise, and there's going to be a break-in of the seal, as the seal probably compresses just a little bit. There won't be quite as much pressure winding the roof and pushing it into place. So I'm going to let it sit for a couple weeks before I put the the whole thing completely together, so that I can't easily make the adjustment anymore. Well, I can always pry off the headliner and do it, but I will snap that into place at the very end. It gives me a chance to let this thing settle, and then I can adjust it. So the next step is the windscreen. That should only take a few minutes. I do have a problem. It's not something that I per se have done. It's just, I don't know if this needs to be modified, but when it closes, it's not pushing it down quite far enough. You see it's going to hit right there. And once that's down, we're good. Now maybe some lube will make a difference, but basically it's maybe getting a little bit stuck. It just needs a little bit of work. It seems to be a little bit stiff going down into position, and that may be all it is. Or it may need me to take up a little bit of tolerance so that there's more pressure on the arms. And I'll have to fiddle with that over the next day or so. But otherwise, the sunroof is done. Yay! And yeah, it's all worked out really nicely, so I'm happy. Well, I had to bend the arms slightly. This can be shifted back and forth a little bit, and it was binding a bit, but that wasn't the issue. I lubricated it. Maybe that was or was not the issue, but now I can turn the crank and I'm good. And it will pop back up. So yeah, I got it. Sorry, it's out of focus. What is going on? Anyway, yeah, so I'm happy. And the next thing is, I'm going to do the interior headliner. Tricky, but I'm on a roll when it comes to the inside stuff, and I think it'll be fun to get that all done. And yeah, then it's on to the rest of the interior, I guess. So yeah, awesome.